please join me in welcoming Ira Sherman.
Thanks, Mark. Thanks, Mark. About 10 years ago, I came to my first conference here, and I looked at blacksmiths before I came to this conference, a bunch of hokey old guys who shoe horses, or I don't know what they do, but I didn't understand the depth, the quality, the skill levels that blacksmiths have until my first conference here. And after I got here, I was hooked. You guys are unbelievably highly skilled people, and I come from a very highfalutin background of a fine artist working in gold. My background is as a goldsmith, and I've done thousands of pieces of really fine jewelry over the years. And I kind of have this elitist feel, and I got here and I realized that I've been forging for 15 years, and I really don't know how to forge. And when I watched you guys do process, it got me hooked. So I've been coming on and off for the last 15, 20 years, and to be able to present to you guys is quite an honor. I really appreciate the opportunity to do this. I think I've given a lecture here before, but I haven't had a chance to really do a presentation. My background is in biology and chemistry, and I had an art minor. I reversed that in college to an art major. I dropped out of school and started working in jewelry. That was what really was attracting me to metal. And I still use jewelry as a way of making maquettes, designs that allow me to start into all scale of work. And that's what I'm going to focus on today. I'm going to focus on jewelry scale, and then I'm going to focus on how you'd bring this up into monumental scale. For a jeweler, that size gets close to monumental. If you're doing things this big, and you get to the size of a plate. But we're going to go from there just conceptually. How would you bring this into something that's 20 feet high or 30 feet long or something? We'll talk about that. So we'll talk about design as we go along. The technique that I'm going to talk about today is called fold forming. This is a technique that really never existed until 1985. When Charles Luton Brain, a Canadian metalsmith, fabulous person, brilliant genius type person, started inventing ways of expanding folded metal. The whole concept behind fold forming is that metal must be folded, expanded, and then opened up. And by doing that, you go from a forged flat shape to a forged three-dimensional shape. A good example, and I had you guys folding a little bit of paper, is if you fold a piece of paper, and then let's say you were to forge this edge of this paper, only this edge, not this, what would happen to that edge? What would it do? It would expand along this edge, and it would start going, it'll start going like that, right? So this little edge will curve. Let's say the metal is red hot, and you forge this edge. What would happen? What's going to happen? This is like putty, and this is really nothing. This is just it's soft red metal. If you forge this, what will happen to this bottom edge? What? I'm sorry, I got my earplugs. The
outside stretches the inside.
Right. Well, most likely, what I've learned is that this will compress a little bit, but this will pooch more than stretch. Got that? I mean, this is kind of a major concept. What's going in fold forming, you want to get this piece of metal to stretch this way as much as possible, while this goes the opposite direction.
What's the technical definition of pooch?
Pooch is poochettes. We're going to do pooching and poochettes, and you're going to see what they are. And there's a distinction there. Okay, so let's say, so now I'm forging this, and it expands, this contracts, and I'm doing this cold this time. Now I'm getting the metal working against it. This is expanding, but this is holding firm, and we get this nice arch. Now I open it up. What happens to this? Yeah, you get that. This shape right here, without the hole in it, But that's what you get. Or you get in a long piece of metal. We were doing this last night. A long tapered trapezoidal shape. Forging this edge, you get that. And then, pretend this is longer, now we're forging the open edge, you get this side. So you get a nice little S form, right? Pretty cool. And you can do this in non-ferrous or ferrous, and we're going to do them both today. First, we're going to make a piece of jewelry. I'm going to do some demonstrations, and then we're going to make forms that are full formed in steel. There's a lot to cover in 3 hours, a huge amount. So I might skip over certain things, and, but I'll try to cover in some way or another the whole process on all these different folds. We're going to do line folds. A line fold is more of a textural type of a fold. This is a modified line fold. This is a line fold. Okay? So what a line fold is a line and then opened up again. And then you fold it again, forge the edge if you want, or just crease it, open it up again, right? Carl? Hi, Carl. There. How's that for a piece of art? Can you see it? Okay, so just little lines. Okay, now these lines don't have to be like a little star. They can, go off at different sides. But let's say before you open it up, each time you do a line fold, let's say you expand just one of these edges and pooch out a bunch on this edge, and now open it up. You're going to get these little craters popping up, right, and an arch on this side. So you get this dynamic happening, and now you do it over here, and you get these little poochettes, and you open it up again. Now you take the whole thing and you form it. Now you take it and you do it. You can overlay these processes one over another, and that's the richness of fold forming. You start getting these beautiful textured structural forms. The other really cool thing about fold forming is after you get your three-dimensional form from a folded single piece of metal, you can deck it. Decking meaning you can weld on or solder on it. In jewelry, we would solder a back on it. And once you deck it, it becomes bulletproof. I mean, it's so solid. It's just a structural triangle, and it's a great structural element for design. But we aren't done. Wait, there's more. So after you deck it, now you can slice it, different angles, and then deck it again. So now you have bead shapes or containers. So if you want to make really cool curvilinear vessels, let's say a vessel like that about 1 foot high, that's how you would do it. Excuse me, I'm choking on my lunch. So what I'm going to do for this demonstration, cut the cameras. This might be a coughing fit for a while. I'm going to need somebody to help me anneal, because I'm going to be working on a few things at once. I'm going to need somebody that will help me. Workshop is over. So I'm going to be taking hot metal out of the forge real fast and flipping it. So I'm going to need a person to open the forge for me. And then I'm going to need somebody to help me with my voice. And then I need somebody to crank this, okay? So. Let me do what I can do. So let's start with a line fold. Where's the hat? Where's those samples you guys? Did you guys put in my bowl? Well. Ooh, cool. No box, it says. So this is essentially the fold that this individual did, okay? What I'm going to do is modify it a little bit. I'm going to run a line fold this way, and a line fold that way, and a line fold this way. I'm going to take a piece about the same rectangular size. And let's do the first one before we anneal it. Let me see. I think, where's that Elmer's glue? Ah, yes. I found some of this in somebody's box somewhere. I just took it. I like this stuff. This is cool. Let's get that away from the forge. It's on your foot. I'm a flake. I'm a real flake, so when you see me drop things, help me out, just like you just did, because I won't remember where things are. Okay, so I'm going to go across this fold first. In jewelry, you notice these are brass jaws here. When we're working with jewelry, we have a whole different set of hammers and stakes. They're all very polished. The whole idea is not to mar the metal, because when you mar the metal, it just makes more work for yourself. And if you're working with gold and silver, it costs a lot of money. So these are some of the hammers from my shop. With a rawhide mallet, I'll do the first fold, open, then I'll fold it all the way down. At this point, pretty hard to open up, and I'm not going to get a good definition in this line. So I'm going to take the little pattern off again, because the rubber cement is so handy. I'm going to forge this. I'm a flake. I'm a bumblebee. Make a nice crisp line. That looked like I was just haphazard. I wasn't. I was forging it just below this line, not right on the line. And it'll make sense in a minute. Okay, give me an anneal on that. Just anneal it right on here. Dull red. Let's try another one while we're at it.
Do you want somebody on the bike, Ira?
Not yet. Dmitri Geeker's sophisticated work comes from sophisticated thinking, not sophisticated tools. Very good. You know, I was in India once, and I was in a bazaar, and there was this guy with just 2 or 3 tools making remarkable work in his little booth. 2 or 3 tools. So I started thinking, you know, the best craftsmen are those who can do the most with the least amount of tools. And I still hold to that. I'm not one of them. So this one's kind of interesting. This one comes across like that. Is it quenched?
Yes.
Okay. In the jewelry world, we use a butter knife. We use a butter knife to open up the fold. You don't wiggle it in like that. You just push it in and separate it. Okay? So already we have a form that's kind of interesting. No? You know, if this was a piece of steel, that's a pretty cool form for something. You have a disparity between one edge and the other. It dips down. As we work this, think about, as we go through the processes, where was it before we added another process? Wow, maybe I should use that form, because the second one we do over, it didn't quite do what I wanted. So we're going to be layering on different processes. Now I'm going to fold it in another angle. Notice I didn't crank the vise down all the way. I would have crushed the fold that's coming over the top of the first fold. Instead, I'll close it by hand, and now I'll forge into the first fold without crushing the other folds. I'm using a forging hammer that's slightly domed. One dome's a little bit bigger than the other. It allows me to get close to these lines without putting scores close to where the folds come into an intersection. And forging right behind. At this point, I'm not expanding this edge into any kind of radius at all. All I'm doing is closing the metal. Okay, let's anneal that. You don't have to fold all the way through. You can fold just one section. Already you have a cup form, something that might be useful. I'm going to make little pouchettes along this one section. Anybody got a better name? I'll use it. This time, I'm causing the metal to actually expand and go and break that line. And so it'll look like little ridges. These can be random, or they can be anything you want. Okay? Let's anneal. In steel, this works really good. You're going to see when we start working in steel. It's a very easy technique, technically. What you do with it is where it gets really exciting, how you use your imagination with it. One of the things when we're working with jewelry is we never let our anvils get wet, and we certainly would never run this through a rolling mill wet. If you want to flatten this and not crush or alter these lines, you can use a rawhide mallet gently, or a plastic mallet, which I just had, guys. I want you guys to work with me at the shop. I'm gently hitting down these lines. So now we have patterns forming. Okay. Let's say you wanted this not to be a straight line, but a curved line. We'll talk about that later. Think about that. Okay. Now that I have a couple interesting lines, I can flatten these if I want. Maybe I'll flatten two of them, and I'll leave these two higher. And now I'm going to do what's called a T-fold, and this is where it gets really interesting. Let's anneal this again. So again, you have multi-dimensions right now, but I'm going to flatten it. But maybe you're working in steel and you see this little hump right here and a nice textured edge right here and a really pretty little line right here, and you want to say, hey, lid for a box. Right? Really nice little lid. Like, this is one out of steel. This is two T-folds. This is two line folds. We're going to add a T-fold onto a line fold now. So I'm going to run this into a big wide arch. So kind of a, this is a real important shape. It looks like a piece of bashed metal, but that's very important. Because now what I'm going to do is put this in the vise on an angle straight across, but I'm going to make a loop. See what's happening there? Here we go. Oh, good. That's nice. Now I'm going to make the T-fold. So I'm going to start at the end. If you start in the middle, this won't work. You want to get your metal to tee off evenly on both sides, ideally. So you got a little fudge factor here. You can kind of move the edge over. But essentially what I'm doing is I made a T. And kind of a cool shape for a sconce. Now we're getting to something that's looking a little more interesting, in my opinion. So how did I say I could treat the edge now on these? I can crease them all the way down. And again, with these wonderful round polished hammers, you can come right up It doesn't have to be flat. You can, without putting any marks onto these edges. This is kind of forming, see right in here? That intrigues me. I like how this little rippled edge is coming across. I'm going to take advantage of that, kind of a little bit of serendipity, and I'm going to square it off just a bit. Now when you work on this, that's the only thing I do is serendipity now on full form. I very rarely try to really repeat the same thing twice. So now we're getting a structural form from a T-fold. But now I'm going to expand these edges. And here's where fold forming becomes real exciting. And I'm going to use a cross-peen hammer for this. So with my cross-peen hammer, I should have another one. I'm not going to hit this edge. I'm going to stay just behind the edge a little bit and try to get this thing to arch. Not much happens at first. You got to anneal it and do it a couple times, and then you'll get a much more radical expansion. Good time to put on earplugs. So cross-peen hammer, I mean, you guys all know this. When you hit on a piece of metal, the metal expands, right, on either side. So if you're using narrow, tight edges, you can use a little narrow cross-peen. If you want the metal to expand this way, but a little that way, use a fat cross-peen. Okay, let's anneal it, and we'll do it one more time. This one, I'm just going to do more line folds. Screw it. It doesn't look like it anyhow. Let's go. Some pouchettes. This would be impossible to open if it wasn't annealed. I'm not going to quite open it yet. I will in just a minute, but I'm going to keep expanding these edges. So now you can see where these edges are starting to curve. If you want this to be straight rather than little dimples coming in the low areas, just take your crossbeam hammer and hammer in the low area, and the metal will push out and fill that gap where there might be little pooches coming out. Or you could take a planishing hammer and come right across the top of it while it's still work hard, not when it's annealed. So you could come across at this point if you wanted to square up this edge a little bit. Okay, we'll open it up now. At this point, if this is going to be a brooch and I wanted to trim it, I might cut in different shapes that relate to the lines I already put in. I might push it into a dapping die and make a dome out of it. I have different things I could do once I have a piece of metal that's been lined and textured. What I really like doing is trimming the metal in such a way that there's a juxtaposition between one side and the other. So I might do something like this. And by putting these cuts in, I'm essentially reinforcing what's called a repetitive line aesthetic. Everybody understands repetitive line aesthetic. You take a line that has either a right angle quality, triangular quality, and repeat it many times in many different scales, and you wind up getting this overlapping aesthetic. It's an easy one to understand, and it's very effective for most jewelry design and I imagine blacksmithing and any other type of aesthetic work. So you can hand this around, and now we're going to do one line fold that's folded opposites. So if you go ahead and, oh, camera, wait a second. If this is going to be a piece of jewelry, I'd spend more time and get these areas textured, evened out. I'd planish underneath, but I will just hold off on that for now because I don't know how we're going to do on time. This one may take 2 times to anneal to open up. Butter knife. Where? Oh. Thank you. Now think about this. This is a red hot piece of metal this big. How are you going to open that up? I'm going to need your help. It's coming up here. I'm going to need your help how to do this. You sure aren't going to hold it in your hand and pry it with a butter knife. And I got a couple ideas. Well, this wasn't that successful, but it's interesting. It has a degree of interest that might compel me to explore the form further. That's another way of saying it sucks. Actually, it's actually pretty cool. Doesn't suck at all, actually. Here's the neatest thing about full form. Remember, I'm saying this over and over again. There's many neat things. You got design 1, but you got design 2. And if you look at all these pieces, I saw a few of you flipping the plates around and looking at the back sides, which are equally interesting as the front sides. So when you design these things and you're working along it, like look at this. This is really cool. See how these lines lead into here? You know, and you could put a gemstone through here. If I was going to make a brooch out of here, I'd trim it like that. I'd trim it like that. I'd cut this around like that. And then I'd put a gemstone in there, and I got a nice brooch. So we'll hand this around. I'll planish this out just a little bit, and then I'll hand it around. What do I mean by planishing? Smoothing, right. I'm not expanding the metal. I'm not trying to make the metal expand or stretch. I just want to slowly get the unevenness out of the metal. And you do that between two surfaces that can conform to each other. It's very hard to planish when you're trying to get a shape and the bottom shape you're forging against doesn't fit the shape that you want. So if I want something flat, the best place to planish would be over a flat surface. If I wanted something curved, the best place to planish is over a curved surface. Very light hits. I sort of like it. That's good. Now, you guys, some of you have done repoussé in copper and steel, right? You've done some repoussé. How long would it take to do repoussé that high? You know, to stretch metal, to get it to push out of the metal that high, that quickly. I mean, it would take a long time. And here we just did it in a few seconds. By that fold, which is air space, and pushing and compressing along that fold. Is it for me? Let's start with a shape that's not a square. Maybe a kind of a leaf shape. That seems to be popular. Let's make a line fold down the center. Thank you. Squeeze this end, and then the rest will line up. Now I can come across. Why do I not want to hit the edge directly? Why do I want to stay right behind the edge?
You'll make it too thin.
Right. If I really want to push this edge out, let's say this far out, if I were to start at the edge, it would just be paper thin at the end here. When I open it up, it would just break in half, even if it's annealed. So if you do all your stretching behind this line, when you open it up, it won't crack at the crease. Yeah, we better anneal it. We're gonna try to do a form that's kind of similar to this. Which is a great form to work in steel. It's one of the easier ones, and it really works nice. This time, I'm going to pinch it back in the vise like so, okay? Now, I could go parallel to this line, or I can make it angular. It's up to me. Or I can come in this way and that way. It's up to you, or this way. I think I'm going to go with a kind of a trapezoidal fold here. Bend the metal down. The vise is just critical for this process. I haven't figured out a way to do it without a vise. Well, I made a mistake. This is up much too high for what I want to do. So when you make a mistake, here's the beauty of fold forming. Another beauty of fold forming. You just collapse it again. And you start again. Oops, so now you can do it again. Now we're going to fold it this way and then that way. I'm going to anneal it first because I think I want to do it with my fingers to get a nice, even, graduated twist. So this is what we're going to do for the second demonstration. First demonstration will be a line fold in steel. The second demonstration will be a T-fold. One end, then the other. Now you close it up. But look at the shape. You got this kind of cool figurative shape just like that. So if you want to make a bead or a three-dimensional form that's kind of tubular, you could cut this with a bandsaw if it was steel, and you'd have this nice solid form right through here. In this demo, I'm not going to expand these edges. I'm going to keep them straight. So I can just slowly push like so. That's not. Pushing it to this side, and then the other one going the other way. And of course, the most interesting part of this fold is where the two folds meet in the center to form that nice little twist. Do I have one here? I just had one, didn't I? I thought I had one.
Show it to the camera.
Oh, camera. Now, I could also fold another line fold again, right? Open it up and do that same twist on either side in a variety of different places. So think about doing that on a big piece of steel and having these wonderful things coming out of a big sheet of steel. Open up the T-fold, compress it in on itself. Look familiar? Okay, so now we'll do a T-fold on top of the original T-fold. And I like the dynamic of a large to a small. You get a nice banding if you like this kind of a banded look. You could, in jewelry, what I would do is I'd cut that right across here. I would deck that little part of the cut, I'd slice it, and I'd make a brooch, a really nice gold or silver brooch out of it. Again, watch what happens as you're working it, because you may want to stop. It's getting much more interesting. That's pretty cool form. I mean, that could be a structural form for holding two big parts together, you know, like for a lamp or something. Gets even more interesting, I think. I'm excited by this. And now I'll open it again. And now we're ready to start the forge. Where's the... You got something to light it with? If you wanted to keep it as a high three-dimensional form, you can leave it just like this. Handle, that'd be good. You know, I could put these on the dresser and then pull handles. But we're going to compress it. Trim off the parts you don't want. I like it. That's nice. If I were to forge this all the way down, not just here and here, pushed it all the way down, this is what I would get. That's why this is so heavy. It's square on top. I took a hammer and I came down on it right on the very top here. Okay, so. Okay. So having seen that, exactly the same thing. I have a vise that's about this long. So it's really sweet to do big long pieces. But we can do this kind of size step by step across a smaller vise. And we're going to be doing that today. Lizard sniffing pig observed by frog. Okay, how is this done? How is this done? We just did one of those. I just handed a piece of copper around. It's just done instead of a long oval, I used a fatter blank of metal. Where's that one where I took the line fold and pushed it to one side and the other? Who's got that? This is the same fold, except one is pushed down and one is raised up. This is dapped into a die to give it a bowl shape. This is staying flat. So I brought a couple pieces of, this is about 1/8 inch steel here, and that's what we're going to be working on for the rest of the afternoon. Do you have any questions at this point? I'm going to need somebody who can help me open and close this vise real fast when I need to do it. You got? Okay. And then you'll open the door for me when it's ready. Let's take them off. Huh? We'll take them off. So our first project will be a simple line fold like this. So how do I do it in the metal? Well, what's the process? We're going to fold it in half in the vise while it's red. We're going to forge it this way in the center, not on the ends, because I want to open the ends up again. These hammers are dressed in 2 different radiuses. Do you see that? One's a little broader rate. This is flatter. This one's a little more domed, but always rounded around the edges. Because when I come in close to a fold, I don't want to put a score mark on it, and they're all polished, the hammers. Even this guy is domed with all the edges taken off of it. So what I'm going to do, Paul, I'm first just going to bend it in half on the horn, then we'll put it into the vise.
Okay.
Actually, we may not even have to put it in the vise right away.
Actually,
Yeah.
just do it in the vise.
Yeah. Well, let's take it off and see what happens. We may not need the vise. Scale's going to go all over the place. Not yet. I think I'm going to wait on that. I'm going to wait on the vise until the next demo. I think it's good. The next one we're going to need the vise for. This will be a T-fold. I'm just trying to get it kind of even. Okay. Open, 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 open. Close. Really hard. Go. Ah, ah. Perfect. Stop. Perfect. Open. So what I was doing when I was coming down on it, I just wanted to get the two ends to match, not to go like that, right? So that's all I was doing, just kind of straightening it up, trying to get that line in the center of that plate. The line could be on an angle, but I want it on center. So now I got an even line, but I could do my pouchettes now on here if I want. But I don't want. Watch what happens when the hammer goes into the metal here and puts these relatively deep dents in. We'll planish those out, but if this hammer was sharp on the edge, it would make cuts I would never be able to get out on the, see where it comes in right there? T-fold. Ready, Paul? Right there.
Right up tight.
Go tight, really tight. Anybody want to do this for me? Oy vey, what would Francis say?
He says, let's go get a beer.
Really, I'm going to need somebody else to help me. Paul's good on this. I want somebody to help me forge. You'll get your chance, Jody. This is going to go on all afternoon. I'm out of shape.
I'm going to go with my ability. I can try the hair. You make a better door than a window, Paul.
What's your advice when you're done? Make sure that the device handle is taken down, or does it flux up your hand?
I'm going to open it. And I might need the power hammer at this point. Dan. Rest this with that pointing up. There you go. That's good.
You hold it. You hold it. There you go.
I'm going to get a little hotter. Okay, Paul? Open. 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 Okay. Open. Okay, go ahead, close. Oh, sorry. Close. Close. Go, 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 go. Hard, go. Open. See if you can get a T out of that. I don't know if you can or not. Make sure it's teed though. Don't let it lap over.
You want to reposition that a little bit? Well, 6, did you want to tip it this way more?
Oh, we got to get it hotter. Go ahead, Caleb, give it a whack. That's good. Sorry. You can flatten it, go ahead. Everything but the seam. Okay. Stop. So we'll put that smaller end in here again, and we'll flatten it again. I'll use this little hammer for this.
Do you want to go straight here, or did you want to tip it more?
I think I'm going to try to make that taper blend into the point on the other side.
Okay. Well, it kind of tipped out before, and I wondered if you were going to try and reposition.
I'll try. But once it's in the vise, I'll do that after it's locked in the vise.
Okay.
Loose, loose. Okay. Okay. Tight, tight. Right there. Go back it off like that. That's good, right there, that's good. So we have a small little T there and a long one here, right? Short and wide, long and narrow. I'm going to define this edge a little more, then we'll open it up. do it by hand. The jaws on that aren't flat enough. Okay, Paul. I guess we'll let this one get a little hotter. Wait, loose, wait. Loose. Good. Really tight. Go for it. Try to keep the edges straight. Go. Wait. All right, we'll do it again. No, not yet. Let's get it flat first. I'll do it like that?
Well, just put the edge up in the vise.
Try it. Try it like this. Go ahead, tighten it down. Loose, just a little looser. Tighten. God, these gloves are great. These are those Kelvar gloves that Pay sells, those real heavy ones. I mean, it's smoking, and I don't feel much yet. So the line's starting to develop now pretty good. going. Just right down the center.
Stop it here.
Yeah. And the other side. Try to keep the edge even. There we go. That's good. Great. Okay. I'm going to square up the edge just a little bit. Ready? Great. Yeah, mostly to the, yeah. Towards the end, but in the center too. Yeah, this is good right here, yeah, right here. Okay. Great, good, perfect. Okay, let's open it up. So there's, now we're going to open it. We'll throw another one. Yeah, in the forge. Now I'm trying to get a little bit of a dome this way. I'm just looking for a nice, sharp, straight edge on the anvil to make a line across there. Okay, who can help me if I wanted to make this come out further? How would I do that? I want this line to come out further now. I should have done it when I made my first fold, but now aesthetically I want it to come out further. Got any ideas?
Set hammer and a striker. Edge of the anvil.
Want to do it?
Yeah.
Can I do it for me? Okay, Paul's going to do it.
Do we have a set hammer?
I don't know. Look around. While you're doing that, we'll work on this one. Okay, so two.
Back in the forge?
Yeah, put that back. Find your set hammer. Dan, the small hammer. The big hammer. Those are the small ones. big hammer. I think I'm going to wait for the next heat to open it all the way up. If I try to open it all the way up now, it'll probably freeze somewhere where I can't get it back in the forge. It'll be like this big butterfly. So I better heat it up one more time. This is great. I love watching demos. No, not that hammer. Take a junky hammer.
Hammer and strike it like you mean it.
Yeah, get it. The side of that. Use the side of that. Yeah.
Hard.
That's all right. How's it look? Oh, you're so good. He's good. He's a good blacksmith. Oh, you're so good, Paul. And we'll do that one more time. But yeah, I didn't want to get these marred up, you know. Let's get. I'm gonna get the other one out first. You gotta do these ends first. Don't try to come from here out. It'll open up. I could keep going all the way flat, bring it over to the trip hammer or the power hammer and flatten it, but I like it high like that, so I'm going to leave it. I also like this dynamic that's happening. It's becoming this kind of trapezoidal shape. I better get it hot. Ready, Paul? Who's helping Paul out? You got a good striking hammer?
Go in.
That'll work. I think that'll work good. That's good. Keep going.
I would like to try and get that edge a little bit more.
Okay. You'll see it. I'll make it work because I like what's happening here. It's serendipitous, and when I fold it, it'll look really cool. So I think we're good.
Is that where you want it to be then?
Yeah, it's good. Thank you. So now it's more defined. But the back is kind of cool. It looks very zen, kind of a little zen line. Now I'm going to flatten the top here a little bit, square it up, kind of like a bow tie. Nah, never mind. So now I could do another T-fold, maybe coming across this way or right across the center. Paul, let's get your hammer to come right in here. Right, right. There. Okay. And right there. We can kill that. Where's Scott? He's not here. Go ahead, open it. I'm going to scale that right now. I'm going to scale it a dull red rather than a bright red because I want to keep the curve that's on there. If I do it bright red, it'll change the shape. Yeah, hold the cord. Just keep. Just turn that. It's a conspiracy.
Back to the heat, huh?
Back in the heat. Okay. Never mind. The carpenter hammer. This is the poor man's texturing tool. These hammers are really hard steel. And if you wanted to put a texture, if you don't have a stippler, just use this. At this point, I'm just going to work it cold. I'm not going to work it hot anymore. By forging it down the center, it expands and it curves, right? Stippler. I'm defining these edges and making a little burnished surface on them with a polished hammer. Rag. Time? So we're going to take a break in about 5 minutes. So now what I want to do is I want to decide what shape works best with the little line I raised. So I'm going to play with that with some chalk. And then I'll cut it on the bevel shear. So I can kind of, I can make it shield, I can make a round, I can make a, so I'll play with that. And then I'll thicken the edge, and by adding the edge, it adds to this line. I'll have this edge, and then I'll have the thickened edge that's part of the design. So we'll come back to that. I just want to do that one T-fold before the forge cools down. Ready, Paul? Just this loosely. Open. Go ahead and go. Close her tight and see what happens. Really tight. Wait a second, let me get it. Keep going. Keep going. This is a good place to stop. Okay, let's take a break.